What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today.
What's cracking? What's cracking? What's cracking, my people? It appears to be that Johnny Arnett, not too long ago, put out another Larry Bird video. The greatest all-around player, ... Larry Bird, ? Well, Johnny Arnett, that is an interesting question. And I think Larry Bird has a very strong case for being the best all-around player. When you think about Larry Bird, you think about a player that really has no glaring chinks in the armor. He's a very balanced basketball player across the board and does many things at a good to high level. But you really can't point at one single thing and be like, well, Larry Bird's great, except he was selfish at times and he could ball hog. Or Larry Bird was great, but he couldn't shoot free throws. Or he's a poor mid-range shooter. Or he's a poor three-point shooter. Or he couldn't pass the ball. Or he had no post game. You know, and then you got some people that didn't watch him play, obviously, that'll sit here and tell you that, well, he was a poor defensive player because he was slow. He was unathletic and he couldn't play defense. He couldn't stay in front of anybody. And that couldn't be any farther away from the truth. You're just showing your age. You're also showing your ignorance. Larry Bird was average to above average any given game on defense. Wasn't necessarily a lockdown defender, but played great team defense. Played the passing lanes well. Did his homework. Could anticipate offenses. Understood player and team pattern of life and habits. And from that could anticipate and calculate where the ball was going. That damn Bird had quick ass hands. Could rebound like a MFer. Averaged 10 rebounds on his career. Come on, man. What are we talking about? I mean, Larry Bird did make, I believe, 3 all-defensive teams. Second team, if I'm not mistaken. I think 3. Don't quote me on that. And there are a bunch of advanced analytics out there, since a lot of you guys that would probably talk shit about Larry Bird are the type of guys that only look at stats and don't know anything about context. So for you analytics guys, there's analytics out there that shows you Larry Bird's worth through defensive ratings and defensive win shares or whatever else. And I had put out a video about Larry Bird and his defense. I might even put out 2 videos. That's why I'm not going to go over it again. Go check out the Larry Bird playlist so you can understand who the hell Larry Bird was on defense. He probably would have had more all-defensive teams if he wasn't playing in an era where there were top-notch defensive players at his position. The competition was thick. So really, all people could ever say about Larry Bird to try to tarnish him as a basketball player is that he was slow and not athletic, which is still BS. It's so funny, the slow, non-athletic guy was breaking everybody down with all the athleticism. Look at Dominique Wilkins. He looks like a player out of today's NBA. Actually, Dominique Wilkins was more athletic than most players in the NBA today. Has a better body than a lot of the players in today's NBA. And he couldn't stay in front of Larry Bird. He couldn't do anything with Larry Bird. Come on, man. I've seen Larry Bird run the fast break, sprinting ahead of people. How? Tell me how. Larry Bird was extremely skilled. Excuse me, I'm going to drink this sugar-free Sprite. Green for Larry Bird. The dude was like a solid all around play. Like nowadays, all you hear is LeBron James, the greatest all around player in the world. LeBron James, the best all around player. I was like, well, I do not think he's a better all around player than Larry Bird. No, absolutely not. Like, I can point at chinks in LeBron's armor in a way that I cannot do for Larry Bird. If you have any chinks in the armor for Larry Bird, let me know in the comment section. Enlighten me. Because it's really hard to find something fair and relevant to point at and be like, yeah, but Larry didn't do that. Or Larry didn't do that at a high enough level. I'm just saying, man. Which made this guy so damn difficult to guard because he could do pretty much anything. And he could shoot the damn thing out of that basketball, boy. Come on, man. Anyway, let's get into it, Johnny.
The greatest all-around player of all time. What does this mean exactly? When we're talking about this subject, I think most people mean it in terms of a variety of elite abilities. Is he a top scorer, a top passer, a top rebounder, a top defender, and so on? Usually, when this debate comes up, you'll hear two players get mentioned quite a bit: LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Let me make this clear. This video is not intended to be a criticism against either of those players. Both Jordan and LeBron are immensely talented in a variety of ways, and each of those players have a legitimate argument for that title. But the thing is, I think Larry Bird's case is just as strong, but for some reason, he's almost never given that same level of recognition on this particular topic. Now let me break down the main reasons why I think Bird's case is so strong. For one, Larry Bird has no weaknesses in his game. Think about how rare that actually is, even when considering some of the GOAT candidates. It can be argued that Michael Jordan's weakness was his three-point shooting, especially earlier in his career. LeBron James is a below-average free throw shooter. Magic Johnson wasn't a great defensive player. Wilt Chamberlain and Shaquille O'Neal were terrible free throw shooters. In several seasons, Kobe Bryant wasn't very efficient from the field, and Bill Russell was a very limited scorer. On the other hand, Larry Bird was an elite scorer overall. He was tremendously efficient from the field, from three-point range, and from the free throw line. He was an elite rebounder, especially considering his position. He was an elite passer, he was a clutch performer, and he was an NBA All-Defender. I challenge you to find one thing that Larry Bird wasn't good at. The other major reason is Larry was arguably a top 10 player of all time in several major categories. First off, scoring. When you consider the greatest scorers in NBA history and factor in a player's scoring efficiency, Larry Bird simply has to be in that conversation. He had a career scoring average of 24.3, which is only slightly behind the career scoring average of Kobe Bryant. He also has the second most 50-40-90 seasons in NBA history, trailing only Steve Nash. And Nash was never the 25 to 30 points per game player that Bird usually was. Over a 5-year stretch, from 1985 to 1989, Larry Bird averaged 28 points on 50-40-90 percentages. That level of sustained scoring efficiency is basically unmatched by the rest of NBA history. So again, he's arguably a top 10 scorer of all time. He's also arguably a top 10 rebounder in NBA history, when you consider the position he played. According to StatMuse, among small forwards, Bird has the 4th highest rebounds per game average in NBA history at 10.1. The thing is, every other player in the top 8 spots all played in the 1960s, which was easily the most inflated rebounding era in the game's history, and that was due to lower field goal percentages and a faster pace of play. The closest small forward to Larry Bird in rebounds per game who didn't play in the 1960s was Shawn Marion, who wasn't even close to Larry's numbers. He was able to accomplish this thanks to his 6'9" frame, thanks to his all-out play style, and because of his intelligence on the court. In clutch situations, he dominated the boards to an even greater extent. For goodness sake, in the 1984 NBA Finals, Bird averaged 14 rebounds per game over the course of the series, compared to the Lakers' Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who averaged 8.1. In the 1981 Finals, Bird averaged 15.3 rebounds, going toe-to-toe with the legendary rebounder Moses Malone. When you consider the era and the position he played, Bird is not only a top 10 scorer of all time, but he's also a potential top 10 rebounder of all time. Then you have Bird as a passer. He had creativity and court vision that was very nearly on the level of the great Magic Johnson. At times, it looked as if Bird had eyes in the back of his head with some of the passes he was making. Among small forwards, Larry has the second highest assists per game average of all time, ahead of Scottie Pippen and trailing only LeBron James. But unlike LeBron James and Scottie Pippen, Bird's assists per game average actually increased in the postseason. When I recently did a video on the top 10 passers of all time, I had Bird as an honorable mention. And good lord, that created a whole bunch of backlash in the comments section. For me, he's in the 11 to 13 range. But at the very least, we can all agree that he's arguably a top 10 passer. Beyond that, there's three-point shooting. Bird is tied for the most three-point contest victories in NBA history with a total of 3, which he won in consecutive seasons. In the 1980s, he was regularly among the league leaders in both three-point percentage and in three-pointers attempted. He has every kind of three-point shot in his arsenal, as he could hit them while off balance, he could pull up in transition, and he could catch and shoot. Throw in the fact that he was one of the most clutch three-point shooters to ever live, and yeah, at the very least, Bird has an argument for being a top 10 three-point shooter. So to recap, he's arguably a top 10 scorer all time, a top 10 rebounder, a top 10 passer, and a top 10 three-point shooter. Now Bird is not a top 10 defensive player, but without a doubt in my mind, he's an extremely underrated defensive player. One thing he was known for was always giving his best energy and effort on the defensive end. You're going to be hard-pressed to find a substantial amount of footage of Bird being lazy on defense, as his blue-collar, grit-and-grind personality translated seamlessly to the court. Although he wasn't the fastest player on the court, he was extremely quick with his hands, as Bird was regularly among the league leaders in steals per game, as he averaged 1.7 over the course of his career. He was also an above-average shot blocker for his position, as he averaged 0.84 over the course of his career, which is actually a higher blocks per game average than proven defensive small forwards like LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard. Bird has 3 All-Defense Team selections on his resume, and even finished as high as 3rd overall in the Defensive Player of the Year rankings in 1983. If it wasn't for his humility, he would likely be the NBA's record holder for the most steals in a single game, seeing how he got a total of 9 in only 3 quarters against the Utah Jazz in 1985. Despite sitting out the 4th, Bird was just 1 steal shy of the illustrious quadruple-double. I promise, I'm not trying to convince you that he was basically Dennis Rodman on the defensive end. But at the very least, Bird was an elite defensive player who usually isn't recognized as such by modern fans. Again, to sum this all up, Larry Legend had basically no weakness in his game, while being top tier in many different aspects of the game. This is why I believe he has a formidable case for being the most complete basketball player in NBA history. There are some other candidates that I would consider as well. Guys like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Hakeem Olajuwon. But at the end of the day, when all things are considered, Bird might just be my ultimate choice. So what do you guys think? Who's the most complete basketball player of all time? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Bro, I swear I didn't watch that video before doing this reaction. Like Johnny Arnett was regurgitating a lot of things I just said. And when Johnny Arnett, you saw my reaction, when Johnny Arnett was like, please let me know if you can find anything legitimate to pull out about Larry Bird. I said that. Like, please let me know. I can't really think of anything. I can't. The dude was just solid from start to finish. You know what I mean? From point A to point B. Bird was a solid guy. Yeah. And people are so quick, especially nowadays. What people say, if they don't say Michael Jordan or LeBron James, they'll say Michael Jordan was the better scorer, but LeBron was the better all-around basketball player. And I'm like, first of all, there's other people that can be brought up into this debate, but definitely, I'm like, Larry Bird. Like, what? Like Johnny Arnett said, man, it's a shame. It's a shame. And I'd have to disagree with Johnny Arnett. I got Larry Bird in my top 5 passers of all time. Without giving it much thought, he could be top 3. I just have to sit down and really think about it. And you know, Larry Bird didn't hold on to the ball. Like, if you look, they showed you LeBron's assists per game and Larry Bird's. And Bird is roughly 1 assist per game shy of LeBron James. And Bird did that without holding on to the ball all damn day like LeBron does. Like LeBron was the system. Larry Bird's really never been the system. He wasn't a ball monopolizer. So, like, if Larry Bird played like other players play today, that mofo have like over 10 assists, man. I'm convinced. And if you actually watch these guys play, you know who is the more talented and better passer and better playmaker. And I think it's Larry Bird. All day, every day over LeBron. And most other people for that matter. Like, what are we talking about? And I like how he mentioned about, Bird's, blue collar persona, that grind, that grit really translated well into his defensive skill set on the basketball. That is a very good point. I've never thought about it from that angle, right? Humble beginnings, right? Bird was a product of his environment growing up, like many people are a product of their environment. It helps mold them and shape them to some degree in the person that they are in certain aspects and certain characteristics. I never thought about that. Johnny Arnett's absolutely right. Come on, man. Bird was a tough SOB. Tough as nails. And it took a whole lot for him to sit out games. And that was usually the MO with most players back then. It's a different league now. But Bird would play through anything and everything, man. Cut off his limbs. He crawling on the court, rolling on the court. Giving it his all. Yeah, man. You had to take Larry out and put him down. Seriously. That's all I gotta say about it. Check out our Larry Bird playlist, man. Like I said, I got videos up there that talk about his defense and everything else Larry Bird. Reactions and just my thoughts and things like that. So yeah, go check out the Larry Bird playlist. Appreciate y'all, man. Shout out to the Bird gang. I'll catch y'all on the next one, baby. We out. Let me know in the comment section if you can find any chinks in his armor. Let me know. Peace.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.